So here we are at World Update 12. That is crazy to me that they've done 12 free world updates and we get all these wonderful bespoke, as they call them, airports. We are currently, I'm going to pronounce all these names wrong, but we're at Whangarei, and New Zealand. So New Zealand was for World Update 12. The other thing that came out, which is part of their famous flyers, is the Haviland DHC4 Caribou, and we're gonna go have a look at that today. So let's go ahead and walk on outside here, and we will have a look at the texturing on the outside and check it all out. Then get in and do a first flight and sort of a little tutorial on how to get things going on this. Um, it's like an ugly baby, right? Where it's like, yeah, that's not great looking, but it's still kind of a cute baby. So the uniqueness of this aircraft is that it is obviously big, but it needed very short amount of runway to take off and land. So it did have a lot of stall performances, if that's how you're going to pronounce it, the short takeoff and landing. And you can see with these unique designs of the wings and even the ailerons are part of the flaps here. I believe stall speed on this is around 59 knots, which is crazy for an aircraft this big. That's very close to, something like even a Cessna. But having a look at the textures on the outside, I would call it good from far, but far from good. So as we're looking from around here, everything looks pretty well done. It's not only it's only when you get in super close. So if we have a look at the sort of exhaust here, you can see that the textures are pretty blotchy and blurry. Same thing as you move back. I mean, it's under the microscope, but still comparing it to other aircraft, this is a little bit on the lower uh, resolution. But while you're out far, it looks absolutely great. They did a good job of adding in different areas of wear and marks, and the overall look of the aircraft is very well done. It's just when you get in close that it's not really as nice as some of the other aircraft that you can purchase. But yet again, this is more of a budget aircraft. It's, I believe, $15, which is great value for something like this. So let's go ahead and jump on to the inside and go over a couple of the features in there. In here, to me, this era of aircraft is always just warm and inviting. Some other people might say it's cold and dark, but to me, all of these steam gauges and toggle switches and wear and metal and cloth and leather wrapped and things like that just feel warm to me versus having a glass cockpit with an autopilot, and that's about it. So I personally like this design feel and look. The only thing I don't like about de Havilland's is having the controls, the throttle quadrant up top. It really, to me, is like just bizarre for the pilot really to have to reach up to adjust throttle instead of having your throttle quadrant down there, especially because like your trim wheels down there. So but I've obviously never flown one of these, so uh people might like that. I don't know, to me it's a little weird. But we do have a lot of different features inside the aircraft. They've done a great job with the texturing of the dials. The only thing that I would say that is just a massive oversight is the quality of the textures on the seats. Seatbelts are great, but if you look at this, it just screams FSX to me, old school texturing, and it doesn't fit in with the rest of it. Same with this sort of lamb sheepskin cover. It just doesn't, it just looks old and recycled compared to the rest of the textures in the aircraft. So, it would have been nice to see that updated a little bit. And same thing with the wear on the armrest. Small details, but just I like to point those types of things out because I think it shows where the developer is focused on versus where they are not. So let's go over a couple of the features. We're going to do a quick startup before I demonstrate some of them, just so that we have the battery running on here. So let's go ahead and get the controls out of the way. You can click down on the base here. Now you have sort of an electrical panel here, and then you'll have a sort of fuel panel here. And up top, obviously, there's your actual throttle quadrant. So to get this fired up, it's not that difficult. There's a couple of steps that go along with it. So first, we want to make sure that actually we can get our prop full forward. We're going to crack the throttle just a little bit there. We're going to leave our mixture and cut off at the moment. And then we can go ahead and I'm going to pop on our light panel is down here. So we're going to put on our beacon and our nav light. And then I'm actually going to get all of these turned over as well. These are your interior lights. And then we can go ahead and pop on the battery. Now, the checklist going off of in here does not mention anything about an alternator or generator. They are actually underneath these little toggle switches here. And you can click those on and then cover them up. Same, again, there's no mention of the fuel valves or fuel cutoff, but they are underneath here if you need to make sure that those are turned on. Now, to actually start it up, it's a couple step procedure that you need to do. We also need to get our magnetos on, which are up here. We're going to get those over to both. Then your master starter is this button here, so you want to make sure that that is up. Then you have your starter here, so you do your right engine first, and then you have your primer here, and then we have our mixture here. So the steps for this is that you're going to come through and go start primer, and then advance your mixture. We should get a fire. Yep, and so that fired up just fine. And now, because I'm just using a single throttle quadrant, it advanced both mixtures. So this time we just need to come over, turn off the primer. And actually, the real steps would be that we would have our boost pump onto normal. I always mention this in my videos. Boost pumps are generally superficial. They're modeled for you to click, but they don't have an effect on the actual startup. But we'll tend to do. And so we can go over to the left, prime, and we're fired up. And then we can go ahead and come down here, turn off prime, and then we can go ahead and turn off our boost pumps. All right, so now that we have that started up, we do have an internal dome light back here as well. You can turn that on, and then we have all our panel lights on as well. So let's go ahead. I'm going to swap over from the head tracker to sort of walk around a little bit here. So you do have a cockpit door, which is great to open up, and you can see back into the cargo area. Now we also have these guys here, where if we go ahead and turn your cargo doors on and we want them open, so you can see we've got the lower and the ramp and the cargo door. Those are going to open up. We go to the outside, we can go have a look. Now the bottom ramp here will come down to 15 degrees, and there's a 15-degree override to lower that down further. Apparently 15 degrees is for when you have things like airdrops or skydiving. But they've modeled in here nicely. I think this is great that they've done that with, a different layouts with a combination of personnel holding and cargo and things like that. So that's great that they've added that in there, and also the functionality to open up the cargo hold, which I didn't think they were actually going to put that in. So that is nice to see. And then to close it up, you're just going to come down to close. If you wanted to lower it all the way down, this is your override button there, so we can go ahead and do that. And then I wanted to see, they do have those modeled, which is good. Some of the circuit breakers are modeled. I don't go over any of those just because it is, to me, same again, a little bit superficial where nothing's going to pop these in the simulator. So I people make a sort of a fuss about it, but really there's nothing that's going to make those break. So I don't know why they put them in. But I guess it's still nice if you wanted to go through and check your circuit breakers. They're all going to be fine no matter what. But so we're fired up. We are good to really get taxiing here. There's a couple things that we'll want to have a look at. One, we have this gust lever. What that means is that it's basically going to block the throttle from going full. And I guess that's for taxiing. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose is. Just maybe that you can't advance past that point while you're on the ground, and you turn that off when you're about to take off. Now, you do have reverse thrusters in this as well, which they're not super powerful, but they will definitely push you back. So we'll go ahead and instead of calling for a pushback, let's see how much that actually works. Let's make sure, yep, parking brake is off. And so we will enable those. Like I said, they're not super powerful, but you can see they are pushing us back. We go back to that outside view. They're not doing bad, actually. I thought they weren't as strong as that. We can go ahead and... Woo! Doing a little wheelie there. So, obviously powerful. So we're going to go ahead and taxi on down to the runway, turn around, get lined up for takeoff. All right, so we're just getting spun around here. The nice thing with this aircraft, it is a big plane, but when you're inside it and taxiing and maneuvering it around, it doesn't feel like it at all. You can see how I'm just sort of like getting that turned around nicely. It just works out great. So we're lined up. Let's get things coordinated here. So first thing I want to do is get our trim set, which we're actually set pretty well. I like to have it sort of, you can see that takeoff range is written there. I like to have a little bit of more nose up. And then really for this runway, we don't need flaps. We have a lot of flap settings on this. So 15 all the way up to 40. The inside of the wing actually goes all the way down to 60, which is crazy. But that's how it gets that performance. So for taking off, what we want to do is you have your manifold pressure there. You want to hold the brakes. You're going to let that manifold pressure go up to 30, release the brakes, and then take it up to 50. We're going to rotate roughly around 65 knots. It can definitely get into the air before then. But that's what that ride up that I was talking about. The guy said they usually rotate around, I think he said 63 is what he actually said. Let me set my barometric pressure. There we go. So we're going to rotate that, start our climb out, get our gear up, and then we're going to drop our manifold pressure down to really you want to be in the green, right? So we're going to be at 35 and 2,250 RPMs. And that we're going to use as our initial climb out in order to, just sort of get up in the air. That will trim us out for around 104, 110, and roughly around 800 feet per minute, somewhere in that range. Let's go ahead and get on in the air. So we're just going to slowly bring in that power. Oh, so I did one step. Actually, there's a couple steps I missed here. One, you got to get that gust lock out of the way. And then, yet again, it's superficial, but we need to put our boost on. So we'll get that all set there. We can also go ahead and make sure our landing lights, so your landing lights and taxi lights are up top there. Now we are good to go. And if you're wondering, your gear is there. So once we get in the air, so now we can go ahead and slowly advance that throttle. There's 30. Go ahead and release the brakes. Slowly keep advancing that up to 50. That's going to be full throttle. And passing 60 knots there, and we can go ahead and start our rotation. Takes off very nicely, very smooth. We can go ahead and bring our gear up. So just coming up to about 300 feet here. Let's start making a turn. So from here, we can go ahead and set that power. So we're going to drop us down to 35 inches and then 2250. There we go. Lost a little bit there as we adjusted our power, but just trimming things out now. Now the sound is okay. I wish we could crack the window open, because even the guy who did the write-up about flying this aircraft, he said one of the best things about this aircraft is apparently he used to fly around Papua New Guinea a lot, and he said it was great when you were flying, you know, low in these sort of like canyons with the window open, and he'd have his arm out, and it just sounded so cool. And he even talks about how cool the engines sound, where really from in here they sound okay, but we're definitely not getting that full experience there. So it would be nice to have that. So we're just gonna go and carry on up. I'm not gonna go up super high. We're gonna say about 3,000 feet. But something to keep in mind: we need to keep an eye on that manifold pressure, because you can see as we climb, we need to keep on advancing it. So make sure that you're keeping an eye on that as you climb. And we're currently in the auto max, I believe. Are we in auto max here? Yeah, we're in auto max. Sorry, I adjusted the prop there instead. So you want to keep that for the climb, and then you can bring back your mixture to auto lean for once we start our cruise. But we're going to fly out and check out some of the new landmarks that they added for New Zealand as well. So we're going to just kind of cruise along here. For our actual cruise settings, you can come down to about 31 inches of manifold pressure and 1900 RPMs, and that will be fine for your cruise. So we're flying up the coast here. We're going to go check out one of the lighthouses, and then I believe it's called Hole in the Rock. And then we're just going to fly back to Whangarei airport and land there. But you can see as far as getting things set for cruise, I've got us set at 31, 32, and just about 2,000. So I can back that off a little bit, actually. Bring that back down to about there, and 31. So just get it tuned in a little bit more. And then as far as adjusting the trim, you know, it's a big plane. It's not super fast. I mean, we're going 130 knots, 135 knots, somewhere in that range. We do get bounced around a little bit, but overall, it's not too bad to trim out. One thing that I don't know if it's in this aircraft, I would imagine it would have it, but I can't find it, is either a rudder trim or an aileron trim, because it does seem to have a little bit of a left turning tendency, which You can get the elevators trimmed out nicely, but as far as ailerons or using your rudder trim, I have not been able to make that happen. I don't. It might be this, and it's just not modeled because your trim wheel is here for your aileron, but it doesn't appear that this has the capabilities. But please comment down below if you have found where that is in the cockpit, because I have not. A keybind might work for it, but otherwise, you're, stuck to having to correct that left turning tendency, which isn't a big deal. There is no autopilot. We do have a Garmin down here if we wanted to put in a flight plan, and you do have your sort of nav 1 and nav 2 to tune in VORs and such on your CDI here. This would be your nav 1, this is your nav 2, and it does work. I tested it out. There's not a lot of VORs in New Zealand, so not much to tune there, but it definitely works, and you have your course knob there to set everything and be good. You can swap it over to GPS as well. I did not test that to see if it ties into your little 430 down here or not, but it's nice that they tucked it down here, so if you wanted to put in a flight plan or something, you can have it there. You also have this guy here that if you turn up the brightness, you can see your speed, but it does say no route, and I haven't been able to figure out how to get that to update to actually be a DME. It's tuning into VOR definitely do it, so maybe it is just an ADF, but I am not 100% sure on that one. The one thing I did not mention for getting your cruise settings in is that you can come down and turn off your fuel boost pumps there, and then we want to take our mixture and actually bring that back to you can't quite see it there, but right about there is your auto lean, so we can get a little bit better fuel burn and a little bit more endurance out of the aircraft. But you'll probably have to retrim it out, and I was pulling back on the yoke there a little too aggressively, but yeah, we'll continue on flying. I believe this is the point where that hole in the rock is going to be, and also the lighthouse. So let's go check that out. All right, and there definitely is a hole in the rock there. Now there should be a lighthouse here. So, oh, yep, there it is. Right there. You're still getting these stretched textures over the topography versus you can see that this was handcrafted, which is nice. And they're sort of popping in as we get closer, which is interesting because, I mean, I've got ultra settings on, and you still get that sort of stretched texture, but I mean, that looks beautiful. So it's nice. I do enjoy when they put in these new points of interest, because it gives me a reason to fly somewhere that I normally wouldn't. Each time that they come out with one, I'm always like, well, you know what, let's get out of my little home area, which is Southern California. I don't live in Southern California, but I like flying around there, and every time that they do these updates, I'm always like, you know what, let's go check them out. And this is pretty cool. Flying in this area of the world. New Zealand is definitely one of those places I've always wanted to visit. But this thing handles wonderfully. I mean, it really does. For such a big aircraft, I didn't have to make too much of a huge arc to get around to fly through here. All right, where's that lighthouse? There it is. All right, very cool. So we'll go ahead and go back to our climb settings, which is going to be at 35 and 2250. and let this guy get back up, and we'll head on back down. I won't bore you with more talk, and I'll rejoin once we're coming into land. So we're still up at 3,000 feet. I'm going to go ahead and start to bring our manifold pressure down. So for your descent coming in, 26 inches of manifold pressure to start slowing down. Now I have had a little bit of a hard time slowing this down below 120, which is actually we're doing pretty good. Where we can drop our gear. Man, where the heck is that airport? One of those things that, well, you're looking for it, and then you're like, oh my god, it's right in front of me. So there's the lights coming in. I'm gonna have to cheat. Let's cheat. Well, that didn't really help me. Okay, so it's directly off my wing. Ah, it's right there. See? Boom. It's always one of those things that you're looking just in the wrong spot. So we want to descend down at 26 inches of manifold pressure at 120 knots, which we've picked up. I need to bring that nose up and kill some speed here. There's 120, 119. Go ahead and bring down. Woohoo! That introduced some drag. And then you can do your first notch of flaps as well, which is 15 degrees. And now we can start our descent coming on down. We're at 95 knots now. So yeah, that definitely introduced a significant amount of drag, which is good. Now, also I read from this guy's article that he does not. It was very rare that they went full flaps. There just wasn't a need to go 40 degrees flaps when you were coming in to land on the majority of runways. It can slow down so quickly that 40 degrees just made everything so heavy and unresponsive that. Go ahead and crank this over here. That it just really made it more difficult for a very small amount of gain in slower speed. So they would only lose a couple of knots to be at 40 degrees, but lose a considerable amount of sort of maneuverability, if you will. I'm going to go into and head drop another notch of flaps. So, initial impressions here. I have enjoyed flying this. This has been a lot of fun getting to learn the aircraft. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things that I figure out. The main thing that I really would love to figure out is where the heck the aileron trim is, or the rudder trim, because that would help to get this thing tuned for more straight and level flight. A little high. Coming down a little quick. We're currently, I believe, at 25 degrees on our flaps. Technically, we're going a little too fast for that. See if we can't slow us down. One thing is, with these engines, you don't want to shock cool them, so I don't like having that little of manifold pressure. But at this point, we can go ahead and come back up to high, and then we can also bring our props full forward. Yeah, that wind is definitely pushing us around. We'll go ahead and turn on our booster pumps. There are landing lights on. Gears down. Flaps. Yeah, we're at 25 degrees. Flaps. Might as well go 30. Let's go 30. Now, speed. We're still going a little quick. Right around 80-ish knots, I believe is what I read. And then it does touch down very nicely, so hopefully this wind doesn't mess with us too much. Bring a little bit of power back in now that we are at a better angle. We might as well go. We wouldn't need it, but we can do our reverse thrust. I won't touch the brakes. I'm not touching the brakes, just reverse thrust. You can see those little red lights came on. You know, if I would have touched the brakes, we could have gotten off there, but I just wanted to see how much it would actually slow us down. All right, I'll come out of that so we can just go ahead and bring that back. I always do that whenever I come out of reverse thrust. There we are. So overall impressions, a lot of fun to fly. Sound is decent. I wish we can open up the windows. Some of the textures on the outside aren't fantastic, and definitely the seats in here are not what I would consider as up to par with the rest of the aircraft. But the flight model seems to be really well done, and I do like the couple of added features that they've put in. So definitely a buy for me, especially at $15. You're getting a lot of aircraft and a very cool plane at that. So please like and subscribe down below. It does help me out a ton. We are very close to hitting 1,000 subscribers, and that would mean a lot to me to get there. So please either just give a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. All of it is appreciated. I tend to read all of the comments and reply. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.